And another one done. So this month we read Histoire d'une âme, or Story of a Soul by Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux, otherwise known as Sainte Thérèse de l'Enfant Jésus et de la Sainte Face. And this was such a beautiful book, and for me came in at the right time in my life. And I'm so grateful that I added it to the list of books that we read this year. And just to let you know, there will be some spoilers just because, it is a biography. So Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux was the 9th child of Louis and Zélie Martin. And that just them alone, Zélie and Louis were very, very holy people. And it is very evident in the story. And she has such a fond way of talking about her parents, especially her dad, just because her mother died when she was young, and her dad was the main figure in her life that brought her up in the faith. The Martin had 9 children in total, so Sainte Thérèse was the last one, and I believe 5 of them died, and the four remaining girls all became Carmelites. And ever since Sainte Thérèse was a little girl, she had this great desire to be a Carmelite. And this desire for becoming a Carmelite was so strong that at 15 she asked if she could enter into the Carmelites. And of course, a lot of them said no, just because they thought she was very young and perhaps she needed more time. And just the journey alone to becoming a Carmelite is filled with hardships, and shows you that these hardships, these trials that God puts in front of you are not hardships at all, in the sense that they are blessings. And she emphasizes that a lot, that no matter the kind of suffering, great or little, you can still use it to bring about good. And she welcomes suffering with a smile, with open arms, saying, Lord, whatever happens, just give it to me. Give it to me, and I will make something of it. I will give it back to you, and you will make something of it. And she had this great relationship too with one of her sisters, Céline. And there's one point when they were kids that they were very pious, very, very holy children already, I think, where there was a moment where her and her sister, because her sister's older than her, she was able to take communion, but she wasn't. She was still too young. And so when she came home, her sister and her basically did a little mass with bread and did the prayers for that. And she had her own communion. And that just shows you how, even at this young age, not just her, but her whole family, her entire family, were so serious about the faith and lived it as it should be lived. Sainte Thérèse, when she was a child, she was a very emotional child. She cried a lot, probably because of, what happened to her mother. Her mother died when she was young. And that greatly influenced her. And during her journey to becoming a Carmelite, there were many obstacles put in front of her. I think the Monsignor told her that she needed to go to Rome. At that time, when he had said no, she had so much heartache. She really, really wanted to become a Carmelite and wanted to join the sisters. But he said, no, you got to go to Rome and ask the Pope. And she had a pilgrimage to Rome. And she was able to visit all these places with her dad. Her dad came with her. And she had all these experiences that she never would have had the Monsignor said, yes, go ahead, go into with the sisters. And because these obstacles were placed in front of her, she had so many experiences that she never would have had if she had just gone directly to becoming a Carmelite. She got to meet the Pope Leo XIII, and there was this amazing moment where she just couldn't hold it. Like I said, she was a very emotional person, and she just couldn't hold it in, and she broke down in front of him. She begged him, please let me into the Carmelites. Let me become a Carmelite right now. I know I'm only 15, but please, this is all I've ever wanted. And I can only imagine Pope Leo XIII just looking at this 15-year-old who has so much passion and faith and desire to becoming a spouse of God. I wonder what was going on in his head. Like this, and they expressed a lot that this had never happened before, and a lot of the sisters and the priests said like we'd never had anyone like this before. We'd never had any young woman with this much faith and this much passion for God before. Hello, and welcome to this lovely month of June. We're halfway through the year, so halfway through all the books. That's crazy. Okay, that is crazy. If you would like to join me and a few others in reading next month's book, which is, what was that? We are reading The Wife of Pilate by Gertrud von Lefort, Gertrude von Lefort, The Wife of Pilate and Other Stories. So it's 3 novellas. If you'd like to join me in reading this, go ahead and sign up on my Substack. All the information's there about all the books that we're reading for the rest of the year. There's also the Telegram group that you could sign up to, where if you want extra accountability, I can tell you to read, and where you can share things like your favorite passages and your struggles if you're struggling with reading. Go ahead and sign up there. We meet once a month to talk about the book at the end of the month, the last Saturday of the month usually. And I would love if you could join, and I would love to see you there. So go ahead, sign up, and let's get back to the book review. One thing I loved about her writing is that you can tell she was a person who was living in such joy, with such joy and peace. You can tell that just by the way she writes. She was such a peaceful person and so incredibly humble. And that's what's so wonderful about her. L'éclat de la rose et la blancheur du lys n'enlèvent pas le parfum de la petite violette ou la simplicité ravissante de la pâquerette. J'ai compris que si toutes les petites fleurs voulaient être des roses, la nature perdrait sa parure printanière. Les champs ne seraient plus émaillés de fleurettes. She focused on being little, on using what you have. Because not all of us can be roses. Not all of us can be a Saint Paul or a Saint Augustine or Saint Teresa of Avila with, these figures of a much more bolder type of person. We can't all be like that. But that doesn't mean that the Lord doesn't love us, and that doesn't mean we are not important. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because there is such a difference with saints, that they are all united in Christ, but all so distinct. And each one of them has their strengths and weaknesses. And then the opposite is true, where sin is like mud, or everybody thinks that they're all different, but they're just covered in dirt and everybody just looks exactly the same. And sin is the actual identity of these people. I don't know if that makes sense. So she was always so focused on being small, but being small doesn't mean you have nothing to offer. And also the fact that suffering, even if it is a small suffering, even if it is a small thing where someone is annoying you with, be it your family, your neighbor, your children, just yapping at you, trying to get at your attention, no matter how small, that suffering is still, can be rendered good. It can be used for good. She emphasizes that a lot. And I absolutely loved her father's love for his children. Like I said, they had 9 children. 5 of them died. His wife died. And his 4 remaining girls became Carmelites. And there's this moment where she tells him that, like, God, Dad, I really want to become a Carmelite. And he He just basically gives her a hug. Il avait donné tous ses enfants au bon Dieu, car Céline, lui ayant confié sa vocation. Il avait pleuré de joie et était allé avec elle remercier celui qui lui faisait l'honneur de prendre tous ses enfants. He gave his children away willingly. God willed it, yes. But he accepted. He accepted on his part. Louis Martin was open to God, abandoned everything to God, all his children, so that he would do good with them. And that must have been very, very hard. And I love that because Louis Martin and Zélie Martin are wonderful examples of married saints. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, I get really, not anxious, but sometimes I think I could never be like Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux. She was a religious, it's so hard being a layman in this world. It's much more easier to be a religious or a priest because they're for doing God's work 24/7. But no, Zélie and Louis Martin were wonderful examples of what it means to be a saint as someone who is married. And yes, this emphasis to be little and sacrificing with joy is there throughout the book. She very early on, she said something along the lines of like, I had to learn that suffering is the only way to really love God. And so I learned to love, to suffer, and to do that with a smile. It was difficult in the beginning, but I after a while, I was able to do it. L'amour se nourrit de sacrifices. Plus l'âme se refuse des satisfactions naturelles, plus sa tendresse devient forte et désintéressée. The more you lose yourself, the more you deny yourself, the more you're able to love and the more you become your true self. And in order to do that, in order to become your true self, you have to let it all go and you have to give it all to God. She talks about being charitable to others, especially those who you find disagreeable. And that's why I found so human about her. There are many examples, like there's this one sister, every time they would go to matins or something like that, they would get into the chapel, she would be praying, and this sister would come in a little later and always make this sound. And the sound that she would make would annoy her. And at first, Sainte Thérèse was like, I really want to just go up to her and reproach her for, making the sound. She should really stop. And then she takes a second and says, like, actually, no. Let me learn to love that sound. And so instead of reproaching the sister, she listened very carefully to the sound and focused on the sound and tried to love the sound that the sister was making that was annoying her. And she did learn to love it. She listened to it closely and ended up being more charitable to the sister. And that's so human. Like she got annoyed. She's like you and me. Like she got annoyed. She's not that quiet saint or like always, where she was always, completely one and together with God. No, she had her weaknesses, but she fought against it. She fought against her concupiscence. And with such peace, and that's a thing she noticed was she would get all worked up, and then as soon as she accepted it and just loved whatever thing was bothering her, she found such great peace. And that is so true. Like that's happened to me several times, especially being a mother, when my children might do something crazy and I'm just, I'm so tired. I'm done for the day. And then for a second I say, like, I usually pray a Hail Mary and I take a second. I'm like, is it worth getting angry over? And 99% of the time, no, it really is an exercise in patience. And with that patience comes the grace of peace. And like I said, she has this emphasis of loving suffering, and welcoming your heart to suffering. And she emphasizes trying to love it even when you don't understand what's going on, why you're suffering. To love the suffering even though you don't understand it. Just like Job. She really liked Job. I did a video of that. I did a podcast of that earlier this week. If you want to listen to that, I'll put it here. But it is to really just open your heart out to suffering. And in order to do that, you have to abandon everything. The epilogue is my absolute favorite part of the book. So Sainte Thérèse is so ill. She has tuberculosis. She is so ill she can't write anymore. And like the infection in her lungs it's just making it worse and worse and worse. She's coughing up blood. And most of the time she's just sitting on a chair in her room. And several times they think that she's about to die. And she got the blessing of extreme unction. And then there's this part where it's just so painful. She's in so much pain. I'm trying not to cry because it's amazing. She's in so much pain. She's in the most pain she's ever had. And she's suffering with so much joy that the sisters and the priest can't believe it. She's smiling through this pain. And so at this part, I'll just read it to you. À l'heure où sonne l'Angelus, 18 heures, l'agonisante regarde longuement la Vierge du Sourire. Elle tient fermement son crucifix. La communauté qui se tient dans l'infirmerie depuis près de 2 heures est congédiée par la prieure. Thérèse soupire. Ma mère, n'est-ce pas encore l'agonie? Ne vais-je pas mourir? Oui, ma pauvre petite, c'est l'agonie. Mais le bon Dieu veut peut-être la prolonger de quelques heures. Eh bien, allons. Oh, je ne voudrais pas moins longtemps souffrir. She's in so much pain. And she just wants to die. But she doesn't want to die if God doesn't want her to die at that moment. If he wants her to keep suffering, she accepts it. She says, let's go. Let's keep going. I don't want to die. I don't want to suffer less than what God wants. And that is so, that's so, when I read that, I think I get such, I have this feeling of I want to be like that. But that is so, I don't know, that scares me. Could I actually do that? To be in such pain and then tell the Lord, yes, give it to me more if you want it. If your will is for me to have more pain, even though I've been in pain for so long, go ahead, because I wouldn't want anything less. That is incredible. That she's a saint. She is a saint because of that. The acceptance of suffering is astounding. And it's such a beautiful testament. Our faith is so, it is so beautiful because it is founded on true love. So we must strive to be poor and humble and charitable and abandon all things to God. Maybe that's my take on it. What did you think of Story of a Soul? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite part is, if Sainte Thérèse de Lisieux spoke to you. And with that, I shall see you in the next one.